Shall we try some stretching? Okay. Then into prayer. And now just reaching up both hands, pulling the head right back. And down and looking on top of the fingers. And then up and out. One hand facing down and turning the head towards the hand that's facing up. arms behind. Thymus thrusting upwards. And now just rolling the head, so making a circle with the head. Changing direction. Rubbing the hands. And we'll do the knees. Rubbing the hands again. Then we'll do a minute of palming over the eyes. When you open the eyes, it should be completely black. Then the hands up, pointing the two fingers and out, and then alternating in and out. Hands to the front again. And rubbing the hands again. Put it over the kidneys or sacroiliacs. They're like the lungs of the dantian, so just sort of breathe into them Feel that place expanding as you breathe in and then contracting as you breathe out. Bring the hands round to the danchan itself. And then just bring the mind to the thymus, to the upper heart, the sternum, the top of the sternum. So you can just see like a small, like candle flame there, licking upwards. It's a nice meditation as well. In a dark room, just have one candle that you're facing. And then let the hands come up into prayer, but it's like they're called up by that flame. The flame just lifts the hands up. And then feel that flame reaching up into the throat. And then licking up into the head. So the head becomes a flame, a fire, a blaze. Stretching the leg. Firmly believe that if we all had a massage once a week or once a fortnight, the world would be a much better place. It's one of the consequences of thinking to ourselves with this stream of words in the head is that we lose contact with our own body. The mind is in the head rather than in the whole body, which is where it should be. It's quite interesting. If you think in images rather than words, then those images tend to possess the body rather than simply the head. And this is why I think Jung's theory of the archetypes is so important. Because you actually become the archetype. It's not just an image that you have in your head. And then just into this squat on the toes. Somehow up. And then coming into riding horse, so the feet, big toes in slightly, little toes out, toes spread. Feel the heels. The heels are both wanting to swing out with the big toes and they're wanting to pull in with the little toes. So they're quite wide, the heels as well. So you're very conscious of the whole edge of the heel, not just the outside edge. Big toe especially is trying to hook down. Tip of the tongue on the roof of the mouth. And then just feel the fascia, like these threads running from the tip of the tongue through the body, a multitude of threads all the way down to the feet and into the ground through the tips of the toes and the heel. And then bring the mind to the sacrum. Sacrum os, the sacred bone. Feel gravity pulling it down. And feel the two hip bones gripping the sacrum. That's what we want to lighten. We want to lighten our grip on things. So a sense of the hip bones almost trying to pull away from the sacrum to create a bit of space and air in the sacroiliacs. And for that, I have to really open the hips as well, which is why one of the reasons the butterfly is so important. Feel the bow, the arch of the legs. So the sacrum is your capstone to the arch. It's the final piece that holds it all together. What we want to try and feel and become aware of is the tension that we need to institute down here to enable the mind to think to itself. It's a tension that stops a flow, like a breach or a block. So if I can just expand this whole region, then I sort of wake up more, but I have to keep it going because it's going to close down as soon as I lose my concentration. So this opens up, the soles of my feet open up. So there's like a streaming going between me and the ground. It almost sort of takes your breath away. It's like, you sort of need to gulp for air. It's just so different than normal. We're so not used to it. Just an awakeness and awareness. I was reading the anthropologists, they're now saying that basically there's an enormous shift that happened in the mind between sort of primitive ancient man and modern man. And so what they call the extensive mind. So primitive peoples, when they gaze out at the world, what we tend to do, we tend to look at the world and then bring in an image, which we then think about. What they do, their mind just goes out and touches things, and they become the thing that they're touching. So it's like their mind is constantly exploring and touching. So they never assume that what they're looking at is the whole picture. And so when they see something, rather than just saying, oh yeah, that's a chair, and then taking an image of the chair into themselves and resting with that, well, yeah, it looks like a chair, but it could be something else. What's underneath it? What's in the parts I can't see? What's hiding behind it? So it's a way of being in the world that obviously you had to be like at one point, because you had to be a little bit suspicious of everything. And we've lost that ability to really become affected by the world. We take images and play with them, but we're no longer with the thing itself. And it's simply because we've instituted tensions that block flows. In particular, the flow of gravity, which is the most pervasive. It's the one that's there all the time. We can't avoid that. I want to feel this pull as a flow through my body. And for that, I have to keep with it. As soon as my mind wanders, I've introduced a tension that prevents the flow. So I'm allowing gravity to flow through me, and then I really can feel that hardness of the ground flowing up through me and filling my bones. And then we want to feel the levity. So the operation of the heavens, you can think of it as God, you can think of it as simply the vacuum of space, operating upon your lightness, upon your spirit, and pulling up, especially at the thymus. So something is calling me all the time, the same way the earth is calling me. And one day the earth will have me. And hopefully one day the heavens will have me as well. So we have to feel this. We have to wake it up. It's there all the time, just as much as gravity is, but we've just learned to cut off from it so well. So the image of rain, sort of dripping, melting downwards, and the image of the flame or evaporation, vaporization, something lifting. Drop the hands and now just be with that, with the flame in the heart, and just allow that to bring your hands up into prayer. So the middle fingers align with that flame and point upwards, and just feel that being the same release that allows gravity to pull at your tail downwards. And then just allow the hands down again. And now again, so there's something calls my hands up. It's my awareness of that pull, that flame in my heart. And my hand becomes the flame. And then one more, so just drop the hands. And just feel the melting down. And then just bring your mind to this. And allow that to bring the hands up. Always think of that lovely quote of Marx's: all that is solid melts into air. Bring it into riding a horse. Feel how you have to lean back a tad just to stop the weight of your arms pulling you forwards. Just keep this going, the streaming. You know, that phrase, stream of consciousness, it's a beautiful phrase. I mean, it tends to be used to describe the endless chatter in the head. But if you think of it as just a stream of awareness, and that's exactly what we want, an unbroken thread, mind continuous. And now let's just do the two circles, really feeling the shoulder blade coming away from the spine to reach out. One hand is pulling in, one hand is reaching out. So always two minds. But the mind that we're used to, the rational mind, is with what it can see. The hand that's coming in, I'm bringing in order to inspect what it is that I've captured. But at the same time, there's this shadow mind that's reaching out of the darkness behind me. And I want to be aware of that. I don't want to bring my rational mind into it because then I'll ruin it. I just want to acknowledge that it's there. I'll reach out. And what starts the hand coming back is the roundening. I'm not simply contracting the arm to pull it in. I'm expanding more and more from the back, and that's bringing the hand in. This is ward off. What do I need to do with my mind and spirit to allow the arm to come out of its socket and the shoulder blade to come away from the spine? Again, it's something in me has to expand. So there's that point where, oh, I almost gulp for air. It's so awful. And that's the same burst of openness that we need to sustain to keep the gravity and the levity balancing each other. It's this action here of the arm coming away that brings the arm into ward off. So what we want to do is move from leg to leg now with the same action in the leg. So something expands from here in the same way that my shoulder came out and my shoulder blade came away from the spine. I want to feel it happening here as well, like the hip bone comes away from the sacrum. And it's that claws at the ground and actually moves me into the foot. So rather than it simply being a contraction of the leg, a bending of the leg, it's a roundening, an opening. Like opening an arm to embrace something. So it's got a sort of voracious quality. You're like a really hungry person that's just pigging themselves, stuffing the food into their mouth. So something in you is opening wide in order to get more in. It's sort of getting closer and closer to the ground. And it's very much of the region of your legs, so between your danchen and the ground. That's the region that's really active. Despite the fact that we always try and bring the arm into it, want to feel it's the leg, the activity in the leg that's forcing the arm to follow suit rather than the other way around. Good. Feel the sacrum. And so really we have two sacred bones, the sacrum and the sternum. And they're very similar. And there's a real connection between them. Feel the down, feel the rain dragging at you. Feel the steam rising from you. Relax across the sacroiliacs. It's in that region, but really it's more sort of out from the sacroiliacs. It's very much connected to the kidneys, the upper buttock, the hip bones, the iliac crest. There's a sense that that whole region becomes really big. Try a bit going backwards and forwards. So here we can concentrate on the stretching the leg and then contracting. So that sudden burst as I clench my toes, snatch. It's like snatching. Here I'm just struggling to get the leg as straight as possible before I then snatch with it. Stretch and spread the toes as you stretch the leg. And then make a fist with the foot. That's the feeling. Beautiful. Reaching out and pulling in. And now just turning. So centrifugal, centripetal now. So lightly turning. Everything is moving. Your eyes are making no effort to latch onto the room. Everything's blurred. Feel the body and the energy billowing outwards. And feel the mind and the spirit concentrating inward. Right. Feet, big toes in a little, little toes can go out if they need to. So we tend to be relatively unaware of our own legs, what's beneath here. So really waking up the feet is key to getting some awareness down there. And gravity, which is the earth pulling me, levity, which is the heavens pulling me. And then I have this centrifugal, this sort of expansion away from a center, like I'm just radiating energy outwards. And then I also have the mind and the spirit gathering inwards, focusing, concentrating. And now let's wake up the tail. Just this exercise. As you put the heel down, so as we put the heel down, normally the tail would try and find the heel. So the tail would sort of go down this leg. What I want to do now is just whip it out here. So I have to really tip my hip to get the tail to swing out to the side, and then here. Yeah, so this is difficult. It's very similar to sort of waking up the foot. We're sort of making the foot malleable. It can move as it's meant to be able to move. It can stretch, it can contract. The same with the tail. The tail is sort of vestigial. It's gone to sleep probably thousands of years ago. So here we're just trying to get it to wake up and get the tip of the tail, get the spirit in the tip of the tail to wake up. So sort of takes on a life of its own. It swings out to the side and then it swings this way. Yeah, it's difficult because, we're trying to sort of wake something up and get it coming out. But in order to do that, we first of all have to really gather in. So really concentrate the spirit inwards. And then you can squeeze it down this sort of narrow tube, which is the tail. So it's not simply just letting the energy out. We're trying to squeeze it like this really narrow, like a capillary. I have to do something inside to contract, to squeeze it, but I also have to do something to open up the channel. And then just getting it swinging back and forth underneath now. What do I have to do with my mind, with my intensity, my spirit? Pulling the tail under, but I don't want it to roll up. I want it to simply point forwards from underneath. And then I do something and get it to go back. So this is intention. So I'm intending my tail back, and the tail goes, and then my body has to do something to allow it. So now I'm intending my tail under, and then my body has to go through certain motions. I want to try and make sure that it is the spirit in the tip of the tail that's leading. Otherwise, it just won't be fine enough. I'll just try and do it with my forceful mind. It'll just be like a gross movement. So here something is twisting and trying to get back, and then it pulls in and slips under. Okay, and let's just bring it back to riding horse. Okay, so now the sacrum is with this little creature on the end of it, the tail, which is wriggling away because it's woken up. There's like something down here sort of playing away. It wants to go into the ground. It sort of wants to burrow, but it's delighted to be mobile. And then we want to feel basically the same thing in the thymus. So the sternum is rising up here. It's like the thymus is really like a little tail that comes out of the sternum and is trying to go upwards. It's a very similar activity to what we have in the tail. It's always the case, you know, it's symmetrical. And now the release that I need to sustain to allow the flow of gravity and the lift of levity now has to allow this movement from within me, this wriggling in the tail and this wriggling in the thymus here. And let's just figure about feeling it really coming from the tail. My tail is pointing and then pulling in. Tip of my tail is making this flow. So what does my body have to do in order to follow? So rather than using the body to force a shape upon the tail, I'm using the tail to loosen up the body, to force the body to go along for the ride. So what do I have to do inside to release the body so that it can follow this flow? This is very much Blakeney, very much the work we were doing at Blakeney. All waking up aspects of the body and the energy that normally we never use because we live in such a sort of like a boring culture, really, that where we never really need spirit. Everything's so safe and boring. We don't need to investigate things because we know what they are. So here, this is really alive. You know, one thing John was into, so when we first moved to Blakeney, I remember just fluttering the fingers. It's like each finger has a life of its own. And so we've got these 5 fingers, we've got these 5 toes, and if each one of them can become a little bit independent, then the whole body just takes on a whole new richness, which is threatening to send you crazy. And now let's just step with it. Figure of 8 around the hips again. But what I want to do is allow that sort of flamboyance of the sort of fluttering fingers and the wiggling tail to take me almost out of my range. So as I come into the foot, I'm not simply settling down into the foot in order to bring this up. I'm going into the foot because the tail is sort of swinging out. So I have to get used to rolling my hip a little bit as I come into the foot. You know, in the foot, we're always sticking this arm out the side. I think that's what that is, really. So I slip around this hill, and I just throw the hip out. And then I just settle into the foot from, it's like I come into the foot from the outside rather than from the inside. And I just feel a lot more stable and also more awake. So I'm coming out in order to come into the foot. And then here, swinging the hips out. And so you really get into the outside edge. So you really have to push the big toe down. And then by the time I settle into the foot, my tail is really long and awake, and it's just poking right down through the heel into the ground. The way, we'd normally do this, when I come into the foot, I sort of lean like this normally in order to get into the outside edge. So I'd normally sort of lean like this. And then, the other foot then just comes off the ground. Whereas now this is quite different. So now I'm trying to go out with the hip. And so if anything, I have to lean my body the other way to stop myself from falling outwards. It's the hip that's gone out. And one, and here. It's all this sort, these tentacles from the hips. They're so important. And that's very much related to the tail. So you can just think of the tail as being like two tentacles, really, that come out the bottom of the sacrum. So I'm sending the right one out here. The left one is just with my leg. I put the leg down and now I whip that out here. And I think this is right because it just enables you to sink more, to get a real sense that you've got down into the lower body, into that region beneath the dantian. And so often we're sort of perched upon the leg, even if the leg's really bent, even if it's so bent that I'm sort of sitting on the heel, it's still not really getting down. So here, this is really swelling out and reaching down, just taking a scoop of the ground up. So it's all here, it's the release here, the release in the hip bone that enables this tentacle of energy to reach out. Yeah, so what makes things like this difficult is, when you get it right, it's more feeling. If you were to watch yourself, you'd barely be able to tell that you're doing it any differently. But it just feels so different. And then the other thing is really trying to pull the toes under. So I'm trying to touch my bubbling well with my big toe. People here can do it because they're just so used to walking barefoot. This feeling that I can grip with my toes. It's going to take a few lifetimes. And let's just try the figure of eight again, but now allow this hand to just drop down and sweep the knee before it comes up. Really want to feel that I have a conscious presence in the region of the legs, especially if I can, the knee and the lower leg. It's such a different mind, the mind that's in the lower body. Sacrum being pulled down. Yeah, so we feel gravity pulling at the sacrum, but also gravity trying to unravel the tail. So the tail is normally coiled up underneath. Yeah. So if I can just really feel the pull on my sacrum, I can then just focus it down into the tip of the tail and get the tip of the tail to extend down. And then the same thing here. So something's lifting. If I can direct that into the tail here, then it will reach upwards. Standing in the rain, getting wet and wet. The rain is dripping off your clothes. And you've got such good energy. Steam is also rising from you. And now let's just finish with a little bit of the tree, or what I'm now calling the ent. Reaching up, the branches reaching up and drawing energy down from the sky down into your Damchen, from where it splits, reaches down into the earth and draws energy up from the earth. Out, up, down, down, and sucking something up. So what we want to feel is the muscular action that here I have to institute in my core to suck something up. So that something is contracting in my belly to get that suction. And then here, same thing here, to suck something down, something here has to contract to pull that energy down. Or here you can just think of the tree like an oak. Think of it starting here, so your legs are the roots. This is the trunk, the thick trunk. The arms are the branches. Alon. Oak in Hebrew is Alon. So the boy's name, Alan, just comes from that, just means oak. Tip of the tongue on the roof of the mouth, remember. I've got all these lines running and wriggling through the body, both ways. And then bringing it up. And really splay the toes. Feel the tip of the toe. Or I can just extend it with my mind all the way down into the ground through the heel. And same thing here, like there's a couple of tentacles that come up and you just reach all the way up through the ceiling. Yes, it's so important to work with images. And it's not just an image that you see in your mind, it's an image you become. Right. Again, tip of the middle fingers with the thymus. And then here, I'm just reconnecting with the tail with gravity.